The notification popped up on my iPad while I was reviewing quarterly reports at 11:46 p.m. on a Tuesday. My wife Emily's iCloud had synced to our shared family tablet, something she'd apparently forgotten about when we set up the kids' accounts 2 years ago. I almost swiped it away. Almost. But the thumbnail image made my hand freeze mid-motion. It was a photo, clearly taken in a mirror, and Emily was wearing lingerie I'd never seen before. Black lace. Expensive looking. The kind of thing that definitely wasn't hanging in our bedroom closet. My name is Jack Brennan. I'm 41 years old, a regional sales director for a pharmaceutical company, married for 16 years, father to 2 kids, Olivia, 13, and Tyler, 10. I lived in Westchester County, New York, in a 4-bedroom colonial we'd stretched our budget to afford. I coached Tyler's Little League team. Emily and I hosted neighborhood barbecues. We were boring in the best possible way. Or so I thought. I tapped the notification with a finger that had started trembling. The photo opened full screen, and my stomach dropped through the floor. The metadata showed it was taken 4 days ago, Sunday afternoon, when Emily had supposedly been at a yoga workshop in Stamford. The bathroom in the background wasn't ours. The tiles were different, slate gray instead of our beige subway tiles. And the expression on her face, that sultry half-smile, wasn't one I'd seen in years. Maybe ever. I sat there in my home office, the leather chair suddenly feeling like it was made of ice, and opened her photo stream. What I found made me wish I'd never looked. Dozens of photos. Hundreds, actually, once I started scrolling. They went back months. 7 months, to be exact. Photos of Emily in hotel rooms. Photos of Emily in what looked like someone's apartment. Photos of drinks at restaurants I recognized from Manhattan. Photos of her hand intertwined with someone else's hand, a man's hand, wearing a watch that cost more than my car payment. And then I found the text message screenshots she'd saved to her photos. She'd been documenting everything, apparently thinking it was safely stored in her private cloud. "Can't wait to taste you again," read one from a contact saved as BG. "Tuesday afternoon? I'll tell Jack I have a PTA thing," she'd replied. Tuesday afternoon. That was today. She'd come home at 4:30, kissed me on the cheek, and asked how my day was while I'd been on a conference call. She'd smelled like unfamiliar cologne. I kept scrolling, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. The messages painted a picture I didn't want to see but couldn't look away from. Inside jokes, plans, explicit messages about what they'd done and what they wanted to do. References to me, to Jack, as an obstacle, a nuisance, someone to be worked around. "He's so clueless," she'd written 3 weeks ago. "I could probably bring you home and he'd just ask if you wanted a beer." The response from BG: "Don't tempt me, though I'd rather have you somewhere your boring husband isn't." Boring. Clueless. I'd given this woman 16 years. I'd worked 60-hour weeks to afford the lifestyle she wanted. I'd changed diapers and coached soccer and fixed the garbage disposal at midnight and held her hand through 2 complicated pregnancies. I'd been faithful, devoted, present, and I was boring, clueless. My hands were shaking now, really shaking, as I kept digging. I found receipts. She'd photographed them, probably for her own records. Hotels in Midtown. Dinners at places we'd never been together because they were too expensive. A weekend trip to Boston in March when she'd told me she was visiting her college roommate Patricia. Then I found the photos from Boston. Emily and a man, tall, fit, probably late 30s, with dark hair styled in that deliberately messy way that costs $100 to achieve. They were at Faneuil Hall. They were having dinner at what looked like an upscale steakhouse. They were in a hotel room with a view of the harbor, and while the photos weren't explicit, they didn't need to be. I zoomed in on one photo, studying the man's face. He was handsome in that generic way. Strong jaw, white teeth, confident smile. The kind of guy who probably used words like synergy and drove a German sports car. A folder labeled BG contained dozens more photos. I opened it with the grim determination of someone pressing on a bruise to see how bad it hurt. Business cards. She'd photographed his business card. Brandon Garrett, Senior Vice President, Garrett Capital Management. A Park Avenue address. A cell phone number. My wife was sleeping with a hedge fund VP named Brandon Garrett. I checked the time, 12:14 a.m. Emily was asleep upstairs in our bed, probably dreaming about her next afternoon rendezvous. The kids were asleep in their rooms, completely unaware that their family was disintegrating in real time on a tablet in their father's office. I should have woken her up, should have confronted her right then, thrown the iPad in her face, demanded answers. But I didn't. Instead, I did something that probably saved my life, or at least saved me from making a catastrophic mistake in the heat of the moment. I took a breath, closed the iPad, and started thinking like a strategist instead of a betrayed husband. Because here's what I knew about divorce in New York State. We're not a pure no-fault state. Adultery is still grounds for divorce, and it can affect things like spousal support. But more importantly, I knew Emily. She was smart, calculating, and if she'd been planning this affair so meticulously, she probably had an exit strategy. I needed documentation. I needed evidence. I needed a plan. So I opened my laptop and started downloading everything from that cloud account before she realized her mistake. I saved everything to 3 different USB drives, stored them in 3 different locations, and emailed encrypted files to an account Emily didn't know existed. Then I cleared the browser history, powered down the iPad, and placed it exactly where I'd found it on the kitchen counter. By 2:47 a.m., I was lying in bed beside my wife, staring at the ceiling while she slept peacefully 18 inches away. The smell of her lavender shampoo, the same one she'd used for a decade, made my stomach turn. I didn't sleep. Wednesday morning arrived like any other. Emily's alarm went off at 6:15. She rolled over, kissed my cheek, an automatic gesture that had replaced actual affection years ago, and headed for the shower. I heard the water running, heard her humming something I didn't recognize. I got up, made coffee, started breakfast for the kids. Normal. Everything had to look normal. Tyler came downstairs first, dragging his backpack, complaining about a math test. Olivia followed 10 minutes later, already glued to her phone. I made scrambled eggs and toast, poured orange juice, reminded Tyler about his permission slip for the field trip. Emily appeared at 6:52, dressed for work in gray slacks and a burgundy blouse I'd bought her for Christmas. She poured coffee into her travel mug, grabbed a piece of toast, checked her phone. "Don't forget Tyler has soccer practice at 4, she said, scrolling through messages. "I've got that client dinner tonight, so I'll be late." Client dinner. I wondered if Brandon Garrett qualified as a client. I wondered what restaurant they'd chosen this time, what hotel would come after. "What time should I expect you?" I asked, my voice steady. She glanced up, surprised I'd asked. I usually didn't. 9:30? 10? She smiled, the same smile I'd fallen in love with in college. "You know how these things run long." "Sure," I said. "I know exactly how they run." Something in my tone made her pause, But Tyler chose that moment to spill orange juice across the table, and the moment passed. Emily grabbed her bag, called goodbye to the kids, and left through the garage door. I listened to her Lexus back out of the driveway. Then I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. The Houston thing happened 6 months ago during a pharmaceutical conference. I'd gone to present our new product line to regional distributors, stayed at a Marriott near the medical center, sat through endless PowerPoint presentations about market penetration and quarterly projections. Emily hadn't come with me. She'd stayed home with the kids, or so I thought. Now I pulled up the calendar on my laptop, cross-referenced it with the photos I'd downloaded. The weekend I'd been in Houston, Emily had told me she was taking Olivia to visit colleges in Pennsylvania. Mother-daughter bonding time. But the photo metadata told a different story. That Saturday, while I'd been demonstrating our new insulin delivery system to a room full of doctors, Emily had been in a suite at the Four Seasons in Manhattan. The photos were time-stamped. Brandon Garrett's face appeared in several of them. Casual shots on a hotel balcony, champagne glasses raised, the kind of pictures people take when they're pretending their affair is a romantic comedy instead of a betrayal. I felt something cold settle in my chest. She'd planned it, coordinated our schedules, used my absence to create her alibi. I wondered how many other trips I'd taken where she'd done the same thing. How many late nights at the office had really been late nights in someone else's bed? The Houston conference had been in March. The affair photos went back to September. 7 months of calculated deception. I sat in my home office, the same leather chair where I'd discovered everything, and started building a timeline. Every business trip I'd taken, every late meeting Emily had mentioned, every weekend the kids had stayed with her parents. The pattern emerged like a photograph developing in chemicals. When I traveled, she traveled. When I worked late, she had client dinners. When the kids were away, she had book club or yoga workshops or college roommate reunions. She'd built her affair into the negative space of our marriage, filling every gap I'd left with Brandon Garrett's presence. My phone buzzed. A text from Emily. Forgot to mention, can you pick up my dry cleaning today? The blue dress? Need it for tomorrow. The blue dress. I'd seen it in one of the photos draped over a chair in a hotel room I didn't recognize. She'd been wearing it at some upscale restaurant, Brandon's hand on her lower back. I texted back, "Sure, no problem." Then I opened a new browser window and started researching divorce attorneys in Westchester County. By noon, I'd contacted 4 law firms. By 2 p.m., I had consultations scheduled with 3 of them. I chose times when Emily would be at work, when the kids would be at school. The first attorney I met with was named Patricia Wolf. Her office was in White Plains, 20th floor of a glass building with a view of the courthouse. She was maybe 55, steel gray hair, cut short, wearing a navy suit that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. I showed her everything. The photos, the messages, the timeline I'd built. She looked through it all without expression, making notes on a yellow legal pad. "New York is a no-fault state," she said finally, "which means technically none of this matters for the divorce itself, but it matters for everything else." Custody? Absolutely. Courts care about stability, moral character, parental judgment. A mother who's been conducting a 7-month affair, lying to her family, potentially exposing the children to her affair partner, that matters. She tapped the photo of Emily and Brandon at Faneuil Hall. "Were your children ever present during any of these encounters?" "I don't know," I said. The thought hadn't occurred to me. I don't think so. Find out. Check with the kids, carefully. Don't lead them. Don't make accusations. Just ask about trips with mom, who they've met, where they've been. She made more notes. Asset division, she continued. You'll want a forensic accountant to review all marital finances. If she's been spending marital funds on this affair, hotels, restaurants, gifts, that's dissipation of marital assets. Courts don't like that. I thought about the lingerie I'd never seen, the expensive restaurants, the weekend trips. How much are we talking about? Depends on the extent. But it could shift the division significantly in your favor. She looked up from her notes. I'll need copies of everything. Bank statements, credit card bills, phone records, everything you can access without breaking any laws. I have joint access to all our accounts. Then access them. Download everything from the past year. Every transaction, every statement. She paused. Do you have a separate account she doesn't know about? No. Open one today. Transfer half of what's in your joint accounts. You're entitled to it, and you need to protect yourself. If she empties those accounts first, you'll be fighting for months to get it back. The cold thing in my chest expanded. This was really happening. What about the house? I asked. Marital asset. Likely to be sold and divided, or one party buys out the other. With 2 kids, courts prefer to keep them at the family home when possible. If you want the house, we'll argue for it. I thought about Tyler's bedroom, decorated with Yankees posters. Olivia's bathroom, where she'd spent an hour last week practicing makeup techniques from YouTube. The backyard, where I'd taught both of them to throw a baseball. I want the house, I said. Patricia Wolf nodded, made another note. One more thing, she said. Don't confront her yet. Don't let her know you know. The moment you do, she'll lawyer up, lock down accounts, start building her own case. You need to gather everything first. Every piece of evidence, every financial record. Then we confront from a position of strength. How long? A week, maybe 2. Can you do that? Can you go home tonight, sit across from her at dinner, pretend everything's normal? I thought about Emily's kiss on my cheek this morning. Her reminder about Tyler's soccer practice. Her casual mention of a client dinner that was really a date with her lover. Yes, I said. I can do that. The receipt printer at the Shell station off Highway 59 had been spitting out duplicates all week. The attendant mentioned it when I swiped my card. Some glitch in the system showing previous transactions before printing your own. I didn't think much of it until Emily's name appeared on the screen. Premium unleaded. 6742s. Card ending in 3847. Her Visa. Location: Kingwood, Texas. 47 miles northeast of our house in Montrose. I stood there with the nozzle in my hand, watching numbers climb on my own transaction while my brain tried to process what I'd just seen. Emily worked downtown. Our house was downtown. The grocery store, her gym, her favorite coffee place, all within a 6-mile radius. What the hell was she doing in Kingwood at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday? The pump clicked off. I replaced the nozzle slowly, methodically, the way I did everything when my thoughts were racing too fast to trust my hands. The receipt printer wheezed and spat out 3 slips of paper. The phantom transaction from Emily's card, someone else's diesel purchase, and finally my own. I took all 3. My truck had a dash cam. I'd installed it 2 years ago after someone sideswiped me in a parking lot and drove off. Front and rear cameras, motion activated, 30 days of rolling storage on a 256 GB card. I'd parked on our street that Tuesday. Same as always, right across from our house because Emily's sedan took up the garage and my F-150 didn't fit anyway. The timestamp on her receipt said 3:47 p.m. I'd gotten home from work at 6:15. She'd been there already, cooking chicken and acting completely normal. I sat in the truck now, Thursday evening, laptop balanced on the steering wheel, scrolling through Tuesday's footage. The camera had excellent resolution. I'd paid extra for that. 2:47 p.m. Our street, quiet and empty. Mrs. Patterson walking her terrier. 3:12 p.m. Emily's silver Camry pulls out of the garage, turns left toward downtown. Normal? Expected? She'd mentioned running errands. I fast-forwarded, watching shadows lengthen and compress across the screen. 5:53 p.m. The Camry returns, pulls into the garage. I watched Emily get out, grocery bags in both hands. She walked into the house through the interior door, alone. I rewound. Watched it again at normal speed. She was alone. But the receipt said 3:47 p.m. in Kingwood. 94 miles round trip. That's an hour and 40 minutes of driving, minimum, plus whatever she did there. The math didn't work for a 3:12 departure and a 5:53 return, unless she'd driven like she was fleeing a crime scene. I checked the rear camera, the one facing backward down the street. 3:14 p.m., the Camry's taillights disappearing around the corner. 5:51 p.m., the Camry approaching from the opposite direction, turning into our driveway. I paused the footage, zoomed in. The rear window showed a silhouette in the passenger seat. My hands didn't shake anymore. That was the thing I'd learned over the past few weeks of living with the kind of knowledge that rewrites your entire history. Eventually, the adrenaline burns out, and you're left with something colder. I enhanced the image as much as the software allowed. The figure was indistinct. Male, probably, based on the shoulder width. Dark hair. That was all I could make out through the tinted glass. I checked the front camera again, watching her pull into the garage. The angle was wrong to see the passenger side clearly, but I could just barely catch movement, a shadow shifting as the garage door descended. Someone had been in that car. Someone she'd brought home while I was still at work. Someone who'd left before I arrived, because Emily had been alone when I walked in at 6:15, smiling and asking about my day. I spent Friday documenting everything. Screenshots, timestamps, the receipt photo. I cross-referenced her credit card statement. She'd been sloppy there, not realizing I had access to the account alerts. The Kingwood charge was sandwiched between a lunch at local foods downtown at 12:47 p.m. and a grocery purchase at Whole Foods at 5:34 p.m. The grocery store was 3 blocks from our house. She'd stopped there on the way back, probably to establish her cover story, to have bags in her hands and receipts in her purse. I found 2 other Kingwood charges over the past month. Different gas station, same suburb. Always on Tuesdays or Thursdays, always mid-afternoon. Always on days I worked late. Saturday morning, Emily asked if I could pick up her car from the shop. Oil change and tire rotation, she said. The place closed at noon. Sure, I said. Which shop? The Valvoline on Westheimer. I dropped it off yesterday. I nodded, drank my coffee, watched her scroll through her phone at the kitchen table, completely relaxed. I'll grab it around 11, I said. She didn't go to Valvoline on Westheimer. I'd already checked. No appointment, no service record. The car was in our garage. I waited until Tuesday, called in sick to work, first time in 3 years. Emily left at her normal time, 8:30 a.m., coffee thermos in hand and a kiss on my cheek that felt like a razor blade. I followed her in the truck, staying 4 cars back. She went to her office downtown, Parked in the garage. Went inside. I parked across the street at a meter and waited. 12:51 p.m. Emily emerged, got in her car, drove north. I followed her onto I-69, watching her silver Camry weave through traffic. She drove exactly the speed limit, turn signal for every lane change. Careful, deliberate. Kingwood was a sprawling suburb of ranch houses and planned communities. She exited on Woodland Hills Drive, turned into a neighborhood called Timberline Lakes. I stayed back, watching from the entrance as she pulled into the driveway of a beige two-story house with a basketball hoop and a lawn that needed mowing. A man came out before she'd even turned off the engine. Tall, maybe 6'1", jeans and a fitted black t-shirt. Dark hair, graying at the temples. Mid-40s. He opened her car door. She stepped out, and he kissed her the way you kiss someone when you've been counting the minutes. I took 17 photos with my phone from 200 yards away, zoomed in as far as the lens allowed. They went inside. I waited 40 minutes, then drove to the Shell station a mile away and filled my tank. Emily came home at 5:48 p.m. I was already there, had been since 4:30, sitting in the truck with the laptop open. I'd queued up the dash cam footage from last Tuesday. Split screen, front camera showing her Camry pulling into the garage, rear camera showing the passenger side silhouette. I'd also pulled the property records for the Kingwood house. Owner, Daniel Wyatt, age 46, divorced. Occupation, petroleum engineer. Worked the same rotation I did, 2 weeks on, 1 week off. Except his on weeks were spent on offshore rigs in the Gulf, which meant his off weeks were spent here. With my wife. She knocked on the truck window. I'd been sitting there for 20 minutes, watching her through the rearview mirror as she unloaded groceries, went inside, came back out looking for me. I rolled down the window. "You okay?" she asked. "Dinner's almost ready." "Come sit with me for a minute," I said. Something in my voice made her hesitate, but she opened the passenger door and climbed in. I turned the laptop so she could see the screen. Pressed play. We watched in silence as her car pulled into the garage, the shadow clearly visible in the passenger seat. I'd looped it, 5 seconds of footage over and over. Her face went white, then red, then white again. "Jack, don't," I said. "Just don't." I opened a new window. The photos from today, time-stamped and geotagged. Her car in Daniel Wyatt's driveway, the kiss, the house number clearly visible. "How long?" I asked. Her mouth opened, closed. She looked at the screen, at me, at her hands. "It's not how long." 4 months, she whispered. I nodded, closed the laptop. "Get out of the truck, Emily." She didn't move. "Get out of the truck, go inside, and pack whatever you need for a few days. You're staying somewhere else tonight." "Jack, please, we can—" "Out." She got out. I sat there until I saw the bedroom light come on upstairs. Then I got out too. Opened the truck bed. Pulled out the siphon pump I'd bought that afternoon. Her Camry was still in the garage, tank full of premium from Kingwood. It took 11 minutes to drain 14 gallons into the gas can. I stood in the garage at 2:47 a.m. with an empty 5-gallon gas can and a siphon tube I'd bought at AutoZone 3 hours earlier. The concrete floor was cold through my socks. I'd left my shoes by the door. Emily's Camry sat in her usual spot, the hood still ticking as it cooled. She'd gotten home at 11:30, kissed me on the cheek like nothing had happened, and gone straight to bed. Said she was exhausted from the long drive back from her mother's place in Beaumont. Her mother lived in Katy, 20 minutes west, not 90 minutes east. The siphon tube slid into the tank with a soft scrape. I'd watched 2 YouTube videos on how to do this without getting a mouthful of gasoline. The trick was starting the flow with the hand pump, then letting gravity do the rest once you got the can lower than the tank. It took 11 minutes to drain it completely. Premium unleaded, $4.19 a gallon, according to that Kingwood receipt. I did the math while I worked. 14 gallons at that price meant she'd put nearly $60 on our joint credit card to fill up after visiting her boyfriend. After bringing him to our house. After doing God knows what in our bed. I sealed the gas can and set it in the corner behind my toolbox. Then I went back inside, washed my hands twice, and climbed into bed next to my wife. She didn't stir. Wednesday morning I called in sick, first time in 4 years. My boss, Larry, sounded genuinely concerned, told me to rest up, said the Beaumont account could wait another day. Everything could wait. Emily left for work at 7:45 like always. Kissed my forehead, told me to drink plenty of fluids. I watched from the bedroom window as she got in the Camry, turned the key, checked her makeup in the rearview mirror. She didn't check the fuel gauge. I gave her 10 minutes, then got dressed and followed in my truck. Stayed 3 cars back, just like I'd done Monday. The morning traffic on I-10 was thick enough that she wouldn't notice me even if she was looking. She made it 4 miles before the car started to sputter. I watched her drift onto the shoulder near the Shepherd exit, hazards blinking. Watched her check the gauge, then smack the steering wheel with both palms. She sat there for maybe 30 seconds before pulling out her phone. I drove past without slowing down. The divorce attorney Patricia Wolf had referred me to a guy named Trevor Nolan. Houston-based, 23 years of family law experience, reputation for being thorough and aggressive when the situation called for it. His office was in a glass tower downtown, 22nd floor with a view of the medical center. The receptionist offered me coffee. I accepted it and didn't drink it. Nolan was maybe 55, gray at the temples, wedding ring on his left hand. He shook my hand firmly and gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Patricia spoke highly of you," he said. "Said you've been very methodical in documenting everything." I handed him the thumb drive. 7 months with the first guy, 4 months minimum with the second. Photos, messages, receipts, dashcam footage, it's all labeled by date and organized into folders. He plugged it into his laptop and started clicking through. His expression didn't change, but I saw his jaw tighten when he got to the dashcam footage of Daniel Wyatt leaving our house. "You own the house jointly?" "Yes, both names on the mortgage." "Any prenuptial agreement?" "No." "Children?" "2, 13 and 10. He made notes on a legal pad. Texas is a community property state, which means anything acquired during the marriage gets split 50-50 unless we can prove fault. Adultery is grounds for a disproportionate division of assets, but the burden of proof is on us. I have proof. You do. He closed the laptop. The question is how you want to proceed. We can file immediately based on what you've shown me, or we can wait and see if there's additional financial malfeasance, joint credit cards, hidden accounts, that sort of thing. I'd already thought about this. How long would waiting take? 2 weeks, maybe 3. I'd recommend having a forensic accountant go through your financial records. If she's been spending marital funds on these relationships, that strengthens your case significantly. And if I want to file now? We can have papers ready by Friday, service by Monday. But once she's served, she'll lawyer up and everything becomes adversarial. Right now you have the advantage of information asymmetry. I like the way he said that. Information asymmetry. Like this was a business negotiation and not the disintegration of 16 years. 2 weeks, I said, but I want the forensic accountant started today. I'll make the call this afternoon. He stood up, extended his hand again. One more thing. Between now and when we file, you need to be the model husband. No confrontations, no accusations, no changes in behavior that might tip her off. Can you do that? I thought about the empty gas tank. About Emily sitting on the side of I-10 right now, probably calling AA or maybe even calling Daniel to come rescue her. I can do that, I said. She was home when I got back at 2:30. Her car was in the driveway, and I could see through the kitchen window that she was on the phone. I walked in carrying a bag from CVS, ginger ale and saltines, the kind of thing you buy when you're homesick. She looked up and gave me a tired smile, held up one finger. Okay, Mom, I'll call you later. Love you too. She hung up. How are you feeling? Better. Slept most of the day. I set the bag on the counter. What are you doing home? Car trouble. She rolled her eyes. Ran out of gas on the freeway, can you believe it? The gauge must be broken because I could have sworn I had half a tank this morning. That's weird. Right? AA brought me 2 gallons to get to a station. Then I filled up and came home. I've got a conference call at 3, but I can do it from here. She moved closer, put her hand on my forehead. You don't feel warm. Must have been one of those 24-hour things. Must have been. She kissed my cheek. I need to prep for this call. There's leftover chicken in the fridge if you're hungry. I watched her walk upstairs to the home office, phone already back in her hand. Heard the door close, the lock click. The lock was new. Installed maybe 3 weeks ago. She'd said she needed privacy for work calls, that the kids had a habit of barging in. I opened my laptop at the kitchen table and checked my email. The forensic accountant, a woman named Julie Brenner, no relation, had already sent over her engagement letter and fee schedule. $5,000 retainer, billed at $300 per hour. I signed it electronically and sent it back. Then I opened Reddit. I'd been lurking on the Houston subreddit for a couple years, mostly reading complaints about traffic and recommendations for restaurants. Never posted, never commented. But I'd noticed something about the community. They loved local drama, especially when it involved hypocrisy or entitled behavior. I created a throwaway account. Username, Texas Gaslight Victim. The post took me 40 minutes to write. I kept it factual, detailed but not vindictive. Described finding the receipt, checking the dash cam, following her to the second guy's house. Included the dash cam footage of Daniel Wyatt leaving our house, uploaded to a burner YouTube account with her license plate blurred out. I didn't use names, didn't include photos of faces. Just the story, the timeline, and the video evidence of a strange man leaving my house in the middle of a workday while my wife's car sat in the driveway. The title, PSA, Check Your Gas Receipts, saved me from years more of lies. I read it through 3 times, checking for anything that could identify us specifically. The house wasn't visible in the footage, just the driveway and street. The timestamp showed it was Houston based on the channel markers, but that was a city of 2 million people. My finger hovered over the post button. Upstairs, I could hear Emily's voice through the floor. Confident, professional. Talking about quarterly projections and market penetration. The same voice that had texted Brandon Garrett about how boring and clueless her husband was. I clicked post. The response was immediate. 3 upvotes in the first minute. Then 10. A comment. Holy shit, dude, I'm sorry. Another, lawyer up, delete Facebook, hit the gym. By the time Emily came back downstairs at 4:15, the post had 67 upvotes and 43 comments. Someone had already cross-posted it to the adultery support subreddit. "How was your call?" I asked. "Good, productive." She opened the fridge, pulled out a bottle of wine. "Want some?" "I'm still not feeling great." "Right, sorry." She poured herself a glass, leaned against the counter. "What did you do all day?" I closed my laptop. "Not much. Watched some TV, caught up on email." "Sounds nice. Quiet day at home." "Yeah," I said. "Real quiet." The gas station receipt was still in my hand when I got back to my truck. Shell Station, Highway 59 near Kingwood. Premium unleaded. Emily's card. Yesterday at 3:47 p.m., exactly when she'd texted me, she was running errands before yoga. I sat in the driver's seat, engine off, staring at the thin paper. The station was 40 minutes from our house. There was no yoga studio anywhere near there. No grocery store she'd ever mentioned. Nothing that made sense, unless she wasn't alone. The thought settled in my stomach like concrete. I'd installed the dash cam in my truck 6 months ago after someone sideswiped me in a parking lot. Front and rear-facing, motion-activated, continuous loop recording. It saved everything to a 256 GB SD card. Roughly 2 weeks of footage before it started overwriting. Yesterday was well within that window. I pulled out my phone and opened the dashcam app. The footage was accessible via Wi-Fi when I was near the truck, and I'd parked in our driveway yesterday morning before Emily left. Right where I could see the street. My hands weren't shaking this time. That surprised me. I felt calm. Clinical. I scrolled through the timeline to 3:30 p.m. yesterday. Fast-forwarded at 4x speed, watching our quiet suburban street in accelerated motion. A UPS truck? A neighbor walking a dog? Nothing. Then, at 3:52 p.m., Emily's white Lexus pulled into the frame. I slowed it to normal speed. She parked on the street instead of the driveway. Odd, but not impossible. Maybe she was just running in for something. But she didn't get out. The driver's door stayed closed. I could see her silhouette through the windshield, but the angle wasn't quite right to see details. She appeared to be looking at her phone. Then, at 3:54 p.m., a figure appeared from off-screen. Walking up the sidewalk. Male, average height, wearing jeans and a dark jacket. He opened the passenger door and got in. I paused the video. Rewound 10 seconds. Watched it again. A man I'd never seen before climbed into my wife's car in front of my house at 4 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. They sat there for 2 minutes. I couldn't see what they were doing. The camera angle showed the car from a 3/4 rear view. But they weren't getting out. Just sitting. Talking, maybe. Or not talking. At 3:56 p.m., Emily pulled away from the curb. The rear camera caught her license plate as she drove past my truck. I sat there for a long time, the phone screen dimming in my hand. Not Brandon. This was someone else. Different build, different walk. Brandon was tall, gym fit, expensive casual. This guy looked normal, regular, like someone you'd see at Home Depot on a Saturday. A third man. Or maybe this was Daniel, and I'd just never gotten a clear look at him before. I opened my laptop, still sitting in the truck cab, and pulled up the surveillance footage I'd compiled. The grainy shots of Emily and the man at her car in the Target parking lot. The figure I'd assumed was Daniel based on the Kingwood connection. I compared them frame by frame with the dashcam footage. Same jacket, same general build, same walk. Daniel Wyatt. Had to be. Which meant yesterday, Emily had picked him up 4 blocks from our house, probably his car parked on a side street, and driven somewhere together. The gas receipt said Kingwood, his territory. I checked Emily's location history on the family tracking app she'd insisted we all use for safety. She'd disabled it yesterday between 3:45 p.m. and 7:20 p.m. Phone died, she'd texted me at 7:30. Sorry, just got it charged. 4 hours. I did the math. 40 minutes to Kingwood. 4 hours total. That left 3 hours and 20 minutes unaccounted for, minus drive time back. I pulled up Google Maps and started searching. Hotels near that Shell station. There were 3 within a 2-mile radius. A Marriott, a Holiday Inn, and a smaller boutique place called the Waterford Inn. The Waterford had a restaurant attached. I clicked through their website. Upscale casual. Lunch menu, dinner menu, Sunday brunch. Room service available. Afternoon rates advertised prominently on the booking page. I screenshotted everything. Then I went back to the dash cam footage and extracted the clearest frame of Daniel's face. 3/4 profile as he opened the car door. Not perfect, but good enough. I saved it with a timestamp and file name. Unknown, male passenger, 2024, 11/19, JPG. The Reddit post had blown up overnight. Last I checked, it had 12,000 upvotes and 2,400 comments. People were invested now. Strangers across the internet were following my disintegrating marriage like a true crime podcast. Part of me knew I should feel ashamed of that. But mostly I felt vindicated. Seen. Like finally someone was witnessing what was happening instead of me drowning alone in evidence and silence. I'd posted an update this morning before work. Nothing specific, just more evidence coming to light, will update soon. And the response had been immediate. Awards, supportive comments, people sharing their own stories. One comment stuck with me. Document everything. When this goes public in your real life, you want the truth on record first. Smart advice. I opened a new browser window and started a fresh document. Timeline. Emily and Daniel Wyatt. Pasted in the dash cam screenshots, the gas receipt scan, the location history gap, the hotel information. Then I added a new folder to my growing digital archive. Subject 3 Daniel Wyatt. 3 subjects, 3 men. 7 months minimum with Brandon. Unknown duration with Daniel. And God only knew if there were others I hadn't found yet. My phone buzzed. Emily. Picking up Tyler from practice. Need anything from the store? I stared at the text. She'd sent it at 5:47 p.m. Tyler's practice ended at 6 mas. She was early, or claiming to be. I opened the family tracker app. Her location showed her at the school. The blue dot pulsed steadily in the parking lot. For now. No thanks, I typed back. See you at dinner. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Might be late, thinking of grabbing coffee with Jenna after, okay? Jenna. Her college roommate who lived in Austin and hadn't visited in 3 years. Sure, I sent. No problem. I waited exactly 90 seconds, then checked the tracker again. She was moving. Not toward home. Not toward any coffee shop I recognized. Northeast. Toward Kingwood. I screenshotted her location every 60 seconds for the next 20 minutes, watching the blue dot trace a path along Highway 59, past the Shell station where she'd filled up yesterday, into a residential area I'd never heard her mention. At 6:23 p.m., her dot stopped moving. Woodmere Court. A quiet street in an established subdivision. I pulled up the address on Google Street View. Nice houses. Well-maintained lawns. A basketball hoop in one driveway. Someone's boat parked under a cover. Suburban. Normal. The kind of place where a 46-year-old petroleum engineer might live. I cross-referenced the address with public records databases. The house was owned by a D. Wyatt. There it was. Emily was at Daniel's house, with our son. My vision actually blurred for a second. I gripped the steering wheel, the leather creaking under my hands. She'd brought Tyler to this man's house. Our 10-year-old son was inside the home of a man she was sleeping with, probably being introduced as Mommy's friend, or some other sanitized lie, while Daniel smiled and played the nice guy, and my kid had no idea he was standing in the middle of his mother's double life. The tracker showed her staying put. 6:23 became 6:30. 6:30 became 6:45. I opened my text thread with Trevor Nolan, my attorney. She brought our son to the other man's house. I have location data and address confirmation. What do I do? 3 dots appeared immediately. Do not confront yet. Document everything. Screenshots with timestamps. I need you to stay calm and keep gathering evidence. This is huge for custody, but only if we handle it right. How long do I wait? As long as it takes. I know this is hard. But you confront now, she lawyers up and we lose the element of surprise. Let her think she's safe. Can you do that? I looked at my phone. At the blue dot still pulsing on Woodmere Court. At my son's face in my wallet photo, gap-toothed and grinning. Yes, I typed. I could do that. I'd been doing it for weeks now. What was a little longer? The blue dot started moving again at 7:02 p.m., back toward our neighborhood. Emily would be home in 30 minutes, probably with some story about traffic or Jenna running late or Tyler wanting ice cream. I saved everything, backed it up, added it to the timeline. Then I drove home, parked in the driveway, and went inside to set the table for dinner. The Reddit post exploded overnight. By Wednesday morning, it had 47,000 upvotes and climbing. The comment section became a digital coliseum, some calling me a hero, others questioning the ethics of public shaming, most just hungry for updates. Someone had already cross-posted it to 3 other relationship subreddits and a Houston-specific forum. A local radio show mentioned it during their morning drive segment without naming names, calling it the gas station detective story that's breaking the internet. I sat in my truck in the parking lot of my office building, scrolling through hundreds of comments on my burner account, watching strangers dissect my life in real time. OP should get a PI license after this. The dashcam footage is wild. Dude just casually climbs into her passenger seat like he owns the place. Anyone else notice the timestamp? She had their kid with her earlier that day. Absolutely vile. That last comment made my jaw tighten. They were right. I documented Emily picking Tyler up from school at 3:47 p.m., then dropping him at her mother's house in Pearland at 4:23 p.m., before heading to Daniel's place in Kingwood. The whole operation had been choreographed with the precision of a bank heist. My phone buzzed. Patricia Wolf. Have you seen the local news websites? She asked without preamble. No, why? 3 different outlets are running stories about a viral Reddit post concerning alleged infidelity in the Houston area. They don't have names yet, but Channel 11 is asking people to come forward with information. She paused. Jack, this is getting bigger than we anticipated. I watched a young guy in a suit walk past my truck, coffee in hand, oblivious to the fact that his boring Wednesday morning commute was infinitely more peaceful than mine. Is that a problem? Legally, no. You didn't identify her. You blurred the license plate. You stuck to facts. Another pause. But practically, if someone recognizes the details, the gas station location, the vehicle description, the general area, It could get back to her before we're ready. We're ready, I said. I've got 7 months of location data. I've got the dash cam footage. I've got her bringing our son to her boyfriend's house. What else do we need? The forensic accounting report. It should be done by Friday. Then we move Friday. Patricia exhaled slowly. You're sure about the public nature of this? Once you confront her, once she knows about the post, there's no walking it back. This becomes part of the permanent record. Your kids will be able to Google this someday. I'd thought about that. Spent most of last night thinking about it while Emily slept soundly beside me, her phone charging on the nightstand, probably full of messages I could access if I wanted to torture myself further. My kids will also be able to Google their mother's affair if it comes out some other way, I said. At least this way, the truth is on record, my version of it. All right. She sounded resigned but not disapproving. Friday afternoon, then. I'll have everything ready. In the meantime, stop posting updates. The more you engage, the easier you are to trace. She hung up. I sat there for another 10 minutes, watching the upvote count climb past 50,000. Someone had given the post 47 different awards, little digital medals celebrating my humiliation and detective work in equal measure. A notification popped up. Our Houston moderators have locked this thread due to excessive activity and potential doxing concerns. Good. Let it freeze there. A monument to Emily's choices, preserved in amber. Work was impossible. I sat through a morning meeting about Q3 projections, nodding at appropriate intervals while my boss droned on about market penetration in the Dallas-Fort Worth corridor. My phone sat face down on the conference table, but I could feel it pulling at my attention like a black hole. Around 10:30 a.m., I got a text from Emily. Tyler has soccer practice at 5. Can you pick him up? I have a thing. A thing. That's what we were calling it now. I typed back. Sure, what thing? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Just errands, grocery store, Target, boring stuff. I opened the tracking app on my phone. Her car was currently parked at a Starbucks on FM 1960, stationary for the past 20 minutes. The Starbucks was 1.3 miles from Daniel Wyatt's house. No problem, I replied. Need anything from the store? No thanks, love you. 2 words that used to mean everything. Now they just sat there on my screen like a stain. I didn't respond. At lunch, I drove to the gas station where I'd first found the receipt. The same pumps, the same cracked concrete, the same faded advertisements for 2-for-1 energy drinks. I pulled up to pump 7, not the one Emily had used, but close enough, and sat there with the engine off. A Honda Civic pulled up to pump 4. Young woman, mid-20s, yoga pants, and a university sweatshirt. She swiped her card, started pumping, then pulled out her phone and started scrolling. Completely absorbed. Completely unaware that her entire transaction was being recorded by the pump's camera, the station's security system, her bank's servers. We were all leaving digital breadcrumbs everywhere we went. Most of us just didn't have someone motivated enough to follow them. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Jack Brennan? Male voice, young, uncertain. Who's asking? My name is Connor Price. I'm a reporter with the Houston Chronicle. I'm working on a story about a viral Reddit post, and I was hoping... I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Same number. I declined the call and blocked it. 30 seconds later, a different number. I let it go to voicemail. Patricia had been right. This was spiraling faster than I'd anticipated. I picked Tyler up from soccer practice at 5:07 p.m. He climbed into the truck smelling like grass and sweat, his cleats leaving dirt clumps on the floor mat. "How was practice?" I asked. "Good. Coach says I'm getting better at corner kicks." He buckled his seatbelt, then glanced at me. "Dad, are you and Mom fighting?" My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Why do you ask?" "I don't know. You guys have been weird lately, like quiet weird. Not yelling weird, but weird." Kids notice everything. We tell ourselves they don't, that they're absorbed in their games and their friends and their own little worlds. But they notice. "We're fine, buddy," I lied. "Just work stress. Boring adult stuff." He seemed to accept this, or at least pretend to. He pulled out his phone and started watching some YouTube video about Minecraft speedruns, the sound of block breaking filling the truck's cabin. I drove home on autopilot, my mind already 3 days ahead to Friday afternoon. Patricia would have the financial records. I'd have the confrontation planned down to the minute. Emily would walk in expecting a normal evening, and instead, she'd find… what? Me sitting at the kitchen table with printed bank statements, a lawyer on speakerphone, the Reddit post pulled up on my laptop. I hadn't figured out that part yet. The mechanics of destruction. How exactly do you detonate a 16-year marriage? Emily's car was in the driveway when we got home. I checked the tracking app out of habit. She'd arrived 14 minutes ago, coming from the direction of Kingwood. The route took her right past 3 different grocery stores and 2 Targets, none of which she'd stopped at. She was in the kitchen when we walked in, pulling a rotisserie chicken from a grocery bag. Evidence of her alibi, purchased on the way home. "Hey guys," she smiled at Tyler. "How was practice?" "Good. Dad says you guys are just stressed about work." Her eyes flicked to me, something unreadable passing across her face. "Did he?" "Yeah, that's why you're being weird." "We're not being weird, sweetie. We're just tired." She pulled out a container of pre-made mashed potatoes, another of green beans. Dinner assembled from a grocery store deli, the modern American family meal. "Go wash up. Food in 15 minutes. Tyler thundered upstairs. Emily and I stood in the kitchen, 10 feet apart, the island between us like a demilitarized zone. "I wasn't being weird," she said quietly. "I didn't say you were. Tyler did." "Kids are perceptive." "Yeah, they are." She opened the chicken container, the smell of rotisserie seasoning filling the kitchen. "Jack, if something's wrong, you can talk to me. You know that, right?" The audacity of it took my breath away. Here she was, fresh from her boyfriend's house, telling me I could talk to her, offering herself as a confidant while her phone probably still had his messages in it. "Everything's fine," I said. "Just work stress, like I told Tyler." She studied me for a long moment, and I wondered if she could see it, the knowledge behind my eyes, the weight of 7 months of evidence sitting in my chest like a stone. But she just nodded and turned back to the chicken. "Okay," she said. "If you're sure?" "I'm sure." 2 more days, 48 hours. I could hold it together that long. Friday came with unseasonable cold, the kind of November morning where Houston pretends it understands winter. I woke up at 5:30 a.m., Emily still asleep beside me, and lay there watching the ceiling fan rotate in the darkness. Today was the day. Patricia had called yesterday afternoon. The forensic accounting report was done. Emily had spent $47,000 of marital funds over 7 months. Hotels, restaurants, a weekend trip to Napa I'd known nothing about, gifts I'd never seen. The paper trail was immaculate, damning, and legally bulletproof. I got up, showered, dressed for work like it was any other day. Emily's alarm went off at 6:15. She rolled over, kissed my shoulder, an automatic gesture that made my skin crawl, and headed for the bathroom. Downstairs, I made coffee and breakfast. Tyler came down first, complaining about a history test. Olivia followed, already texting someone. Normal Friday morning chaos. Emily appeared at 6:52, dressed in a navy blouse and gray slacks. She poured coffee, grabbed a piece of toast, checked her phone. "Don't forget Tyler has that sleepover at Mason's tonight," she said. "And Olivia's staying at my mom's, so it's just us for dinner." She glanced up, smiled. "Maybe we could actually talk? I feel like we haven't really connected in weeks." The irony was so thick I could taste it. "Sure," I said. "That sounds good." She left at 7:30. I waited until her car disappeared around the corner, then called my boss and took a personal day. Then I called Patricia. "It's time," I said. The papers were served at 2:47 p.m. I know because Emily called me at 2:51, her voice shaking so badly I could barely understand her. "Jack, there's a process server. What is this?" I was sitting in Patricia's office, 20th floor, watching the skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. My attorney sat across from me, legal pad in front of her, expression neutral. "It's a divorce petition," I said calmly. "You should read it carefully." "Divorce? Jack, what the hell is happening?" "What's happening is I know everything, Emily. Brandon Garrett, Daniel Wyatt, the hotels, the trips, the $47,000 you spent on your affairs, the fact that you brought our son to Daniel's house." My voice stayed level, clinical. "I know all of it." Silence on the other end. Then, "How did you—" "The iCloud sync, your gas receipts, the dash cam in my truck. Take your pick." I paused. "You got sloppy, Emily. Or maybe you just didn't think I was paying attention. Boring, clueless Jack." I could hear her breathing, rapid and shallow. "Jack, please, we can talk about this. Don't do this. Think about the kids." "I am thinking about the kids. That's why I documented everything. That's why I hired the best attorney I could find. That's why I'm making sure everyone knows exactly what you did." "What do you mean, everyone?" I glanced at Patricia. She gave a small nod. "Check Reddit," I said. "Search for gas station receipts in Houston. You're famous, Emily. 58,000 people know what you did. The story's been picked up by 3 local news outlets. They don't have your name yet, but they will." "You didn't." Her voice cracked. "Jack, you didn't put this online. Tell me you didn't." "I documented my experience, just like I documented everything else. The truth tends to spread when it's this well-evidenced." "You bastard. You absolute—" She was crying now, or maybe hyperventilating. "You've ruined everything. My job, my reputation, my—" "No," I interrupted. "You ruined everything. I just made sure there was a record of it." I hung up. Patricia was watching me carefully. "How do you feel?" "Empty," I said. And it was true. I'd expected rage, or satisfaction, or something hot and vindicating. Instead, I just felt hollowed out. What happens now? Now we wait for her attorney to contact us. Given the evidence, I expect they'll want to settle quickly and quietly. The adultery is proven, the financial dissipation is documented, and the custody issues around exposing the children to her affair partner are significant. She made a note on her pad. "You'll get primary custody, the house, and a favorable asset division. She'll get visitation and whatever's left after we account for the money she spent." "How long?" "In Texas?" 60 days minimum before the divorce can be finalized, assuming she doesn't contest. Given the evidence, I doubt she will. Her attorney will advise her to take the settlement. Patricia closed her folder. You should go home, Jack. Get some rest. This part is over. The house was empty when I got there at 4:30. Emily's car was gone. She'd apparently left work early, probably to find an attorney of her own. The kids wouldn't be back until tomorrow. I walked through the rooms, seeing them differently now. The kitchen where we'd had 1,000 family dinners. The living room where we'd watched the kids learn to walk. The bedroom where we'd slept beside each other for 16 years while slowly becoming strangers. My phone had been buzzing all afternoon. Texts from friends who'd seen the news coverage, calls from reporters, a message from my brother in Dallas. Holy shit, man. Are you okay? I wasn't okay, but I would be. I went upstairs to the home office, the one Emily had put a lock on, and tried the handle. Still locked. I thought about breaking it down, seeing what she'd been hiding in there during all these conference calls. But I didn't. I'd seen enough. Known enough. The rest was just details. Instead, I went back downstairs, poured myself a drink I didn't want, and sat on the back porch watching the sun set over the fence line. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Brennan, this is Daniel Wyatt. I think we should talk. I stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. There was nothing to talk about. He could read about it in the court filings like everyone else. The divorce was finalized on January 23rd, 67 days after I'd served the papers. Emily didn't contest anything. Her attorney, a sharp woman named Rachel Vance, had taken one look at the evidence and advised immediate settlement. I got the house, primary custody of both kids, and 65% of our assets after accounting for the dissipation. Emily got visitation every other weekend and Wednesday evenings, plus half the holidays. She was required to introduce any romantic partners to me before exposing the children to them, and she was prohibited from having overnight guests when the kids were present. She moved into an apartment in the Heights. Got a new job at a smaller firm after her old one quietly suggested she resign. The Reddit post never officially connected to her name, but enough people in Houston's professional circles put the pieces together. Her reputation took the hit I'd intended. Brandon Garrett, as far as I could tell, had vanished from her life the moment the news broke. Daniel Wyatt apparently stuck around for a few weeks before realizing he'd signed up for an affair, not the aftermath. Emily was alone now, which seemed fitting. The kids adjusted better than I'd feared. Olivia was angry at first, at me for embarrassing Mom, at Emily for being stupid, at the situation for existing. But she was 13, and anger was her default setting anyway. We started family therapy in February. It helped. Tyler took it harder in quieter ways. He stopped talking about soccer for a while, stopped asking friends over. But gradually, slowly, he came back to himself. Kids are resilient in ways adults forget to be. As for me, I learned something I hadn't expected. Revenge doesn't actually feel good. Not the way you think it will. The Reddit post, the public exposure, the financial penalties, none of it filled the hole that Emily's betrayal had carved out. It just gave the hole a different shape. What did help was the routine. Mornings with the kids, Tyler's soccer practices, Olivia's endless requests for rides to friends' houses. The ordinary machinery of single parenthood that left me too tired to dwell on what I'd lost. I took the post down in March. It had served its purpose, and leaving it up started to feel less like justice and more like cruelty. The internet never forgets, of course, It had been screenshot and archived 1,000 times over, but at least I wasn't actively maintaining it. A few people called me a hero for exposing her. More called me vindictive. Most just called me human and moved on with their lives. They were all right, in their way. It's June now. 7 months since that first notification on the iPad. The house is quieter with just the three of us, but it's also lighter somehow. Less weight in the air, less performance. I still think about Emily sometimes, about the woman I married versus the woman she became, and whether they were ever really the same person. I think about the years I missed the signs, and the years before that when maybe there were no signs to miss. Mostly, though, I think about trust. Not the broken kind. I've spent enough time on that. But the kind you rebuild slowly, carefully, with people who've earned it. The kind I'm trying to model for my kids, even as I'm learning it myself. Tyler asked me last week if I'd ever get married again. I don't know, buddy, I told him. Maybe someday, if I meet someone worth it. How will you know they're worth it? I thought about that. About gas receipts and cloud syncs and all the detective work that had consumed me. About the exhaustion of constant verification, the paranoia of earned suspicion. I guess you never really know, I said finally. You just decide whether the risk is worth taking. He seemed satisfied with that answer. I wasn't, but I'm working on it. There's no neat moral to this story. No clean lesson about fidelity or justice or the sanctity of marriage. Just the messy reality that people make choices. Those choices have consequences, and sometimes the consequences spread further than anyone intended. Emily made her choices. I made mine. The kids are living with the aftermath of both. If there's anything I've learned, it's this. The truth doesn't set you free. It just changes what you're carrying. And sometimes that's enough. The house is paid off now. Bought out Emily's share with the settlement. Tyler's team won their division championship last month. Olivia got asked to homecoming by a boy I'll need to have a conversation with soon. Life continues, in other words. Different than I'd planned, but continuing nonetheless. I still have all the evidence. The USB drives, the screenshots, the timeline I built. They're in a safe deposit box downtown, insurance against a custody challenge that will probably never come. Sometimes I think about destroying them, letting go of the proof, the documentation, the careful record of everything that went wrong. But not yet. Maybe someday. For now, they stay where they are, a monument to the marriage that ended, and the man I had to become to survive it.